The night settles gently over Suffolk, its rolling fields and quiet villages bathed in a soft silvery glow. A hush has fallen across the landscape, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves as the wind moves through the branches. In the distance, the silhouettes of trees stand like silent sentinels, watching over the countryside with a stillness that feels both comforting and slightly expectant. There is a strange tranquility here, a calm that almost invites one to linger and breathe, to notice the subtle shimmer of stars reflected in the dew-kissed grass. Yet, beneath this serene surface, the forest carries whispers of stories that have long danced at the edge of belief, stories that intrigue the mind and stir the imagination without ever demanding full understanding. Tonight you are invited to step into one such story, gently as if crossing a threshold into both mystery and rest. In the late December of 1980, the Rendlesham Forest near the border of Suffolk and Norfolk became more than just a quiet stretch of woodland. It was a place where ordinary nightfall met the extraordinary, where military routine intersected with inexplicable phenomena. Though the forest had long been part of local folklore, its shadows and clearings offering space for imagination, it was about to host events that would ripple far beyond its dense trees and winding paths. The forest, normally a haven for those seeking solitude or the gentle songs of nocturnal birds, became the backdrop for an encounter that would capture the attention of both the public and the authorities, leaving questions that endure to this day. Imagine the winter air, crisp and sharp yet strangely still, wrapping around the shoulders of those who wandered near its borders. The cold is tangible, but not harsh, more like a whispered reminder of the season's quiet embrace. The sky stretches endlessly overhead, a canvas of deep indigo, dotted with stars whose distant flickers seem almost alive in their subtle shimmer. It is under this canopy that the first strange lights were seen, moving in ways that defied expectation and hinted at something beyond the ordinary. The lights were not immediately alarming, but rather mesmerizing, tiny points that flickered and glowed, weaving among the trees in patterns that suggested intelligence, or at least a deliberate choreography. Observers would later recall a sense of calm fascination mixed with an unspoken question: what exactly were they witnessing? The scene was at first almost mundane. Soldiers from nearby RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bentwaters conducted their routine patrols, unaware that the night would soon unfold into something unforgettable. Yet even in the mundane, there is room for wonder. The rhythmic crunch of footsteps on frosted leaves, the distant call of an owl, the subtle glow of a lantern, all of these ordinary details take on a heightened presence when the extraordinary is about to intrude. The world feels sharper, quieter and more alive, as if holding its breath for what is about to occur. There is a tension, gentle but perceptible, that accompanies curiosity, the same tension that leads one to peer a little closer, to notice small movements and faint glimmers that might otherwise be dismissed. It is in this careful, deliberate observation that the mind begins to wander. You might imagine the officers' thoughts, their eyes tracing every flicker in the darkness, their ears attuned to every subtle change in the forest's rhythm. The hush of the night seems to amplify each sensation. A rustle of leaves could be nothing, or it could be something remarkable. A distant hum could belong to the wind, or it could carry a meaning no human has yet deciphered. As the narrative gently unfolds, the listener is encouraged to slow their breathing, to sink deeper into the landscape, to feel the duality of reassurance and curiosity that only a forest at night can provide. Sleepiness begins to mingle with fascination, each emotion enhancing the other, as your consciousness drifts closer to the edge of dreams while remaining tethered to the mystery. This calm, reflective tone allows for a soft introduction to the historical significance of the area. The Rendlesham Forest Incident is often called Britain's Roswell, a comparison that hints at both intrigue and skepticism. Unlike dramatic alien encounters depicted in films, the events here involved credible witnesses, men trained to observe, disciplined in procedure, and yet unsettled by what they encountered. The mixture of ordinary military routine and the intrusion of the unknown creates a paradoxical comfort. The story is grounded enough to feel real, yet strange enough to spark wonder. Listeners can relax into this paradox, letting their imaginations wander freely without the need for immediate answers. As you continue to drift, allow your mind to picture the forest bathed in pale moonlight, the soldiers moving quietly through the underbrush, and the faint inexplicable glow hovering among the trees. The night stretches on, timeless and unhurried, holding the mystery lightly, like a secret offered but not forced. In this delicate balance, the stage is set, not for alarm, but for gentle curiosity, an invitation to explore the unknown with calm eyes and a relaxed heart. And so, with your breath slowing and your thoughts softening, you take the first step into a story that has captured imaginations for decades, a story of lights that moved silently over Rendlesham, waiting patiently for those willing to notice and wonder.
The quiet charm of Suffolk in 1980 is a world far removed from the bustling streets of London or the bright glare of city lights. Here, in the gentle folds of the countryside, small villages cling to centuries-old traditions, and the roads wind lazily past hedgerows dusted with winter frost. The air carries a subtle chill that hints at the heart of winter, and at night, the land seems to hold its breath beneath a vast, starlit sky. Fields stretch in muted shades of gray and green, occasionally broken by clusters of trees or the faint outline of a distant farmhouse. The forest, dense and unyielding, serves as both a sanctuary for nature and a stage upon which stories, both imagined and real, unfold. In this rural calm, the presence of the U.S. Air Force at RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bentwaters adds an unusual layer of tension and curiosity. The bases were strategically positioned during the Cold War, their runways and barracks, a constant reminder that the world beyond these fields was far from peaceful. Suffolk was no ordinary countryside. It was a quiet frontier at the edge of global tension. The men stationed there, often young, disciplined, and trained to observe, carried the weight of potential conflict on their shoulders, even as they performed seemingly routine duties. Their daily lives involved meticulous attention to detail, checking perimeters, logging patrols, and maintaining constant vigilance. To them, the forest was familiar yet unpredictable, a place where shadows could conceal not just animals but secrets. Yet, the forest's ordinary rhythms were soon disrupted in ways that no training could anticipate. The interplay of light and shadow in this winter landscape created both beauty and unease. Snowless frost clung to branches, reflecting moonlight in soft glimmers, while the low fog of early morning drifted through the undergrowth, muting sound and creating pockets of hushed mystery. The land seemed to anticipate the extraordinary, as if aware that something unusual was about to disturb its stillness. Listeners can imagine the gentle crunch of leaves underfoot, the whisper of wind through pine needles, and the occasional distant call of an owl, each ordinary sound heightened by the tension of expectation. The year 1980 itself carried a unique weight. The Cold War loomed heavily over Europe, and both the United States and the United Kingdom maintained a network of surveillance, weapons, and intelligence measures designed to respond to the slightest perceived threat. Nuclear weapons were stationed nearby, and the men on duty understood the importance of every detail. Even minor anomalies could not be dismissed lightly. A strange light in the sky was more than curiosity. It was a puzzle to be solved, a potential risk to national security. This historical context provides subtle gravity to the story, grounding the forthcoming mystery in reality, and reminding listeners that the Rendlesham Forest was not merely a scenic backdrop, but a strategic and monitored space. Local villagers were aware, though only vaguely, of the military presence. To some, it added an air of intrigue to their daily lives. To others, it was an ever-present quiet reminder of global tensions and foreign influence on their familiar landscape. Stories circulated informally, rumors of night flights, unusual sounds, or unexplained movements in the woods. These whispers, passed along in the warmth of village kitchens or over the hum of local pubs, created an undercurrent of expectation, preparing minds to notice the unusual when it appeared. It is here, in this mixture of everyday life and subtle vigilance, that the first hints of the extraordinary would emerge. Even before the first official sightings, the environment of Rendlesham Forest had an uncanny ability to feel alive. Trees stood like guardians, their branches swaying gently, as if acknowledging the presence of unseen observers. The ground was uneven, with roots twisting under fallen leaves, and the forest floor retained a soft, earthy scent that was almost hypnotic in its familiarity. In winter, the air was crisp and pure, making each breath a grounding experience, while also sharpening the senses. Such sensory detail, sounds, smells, textures, enhances immersion for the listener, helping them settle into the story while feeling present in the landscape. As night deepened, the juxtaposition of ordinary and extraordinary became more pronounced. Soldiers patrolled in pairs, checking boundaries and equipment, unaware that their evening would soon include sights and sensations they could neither fully explain nor dismiss. The familiar cold, the patterned flicker of stars above, and the soft whisper of trees created a meditative atmosphere, one in which subtle shifts in perception could easily take on significance. Listeners can imagine the scene unfolding: cautious footsteps over frosted ground, the soft murmur of whispered communication, and the feeling that the forest itself was holding a secret just out of reach. It is this tension between calm and anticipation, ordinary and extraordinary, that makes Rendlesham Forest so compelling, a place where mystery feels natural rather than forced. By grounding the story in precise historical and sensory detail, this section sets the stage for the events to come. The audience is encouraged to move slowly, observing the environment as the soldiers would, feeling both the comfort and the subtle alertness that the forest evokes. Suffolk in 1980 is more than a setting. It is a character itself, patient still, and quietly preparing for a sequence of events that would linger in memory for decades. The scene is set not with sudden thrills or dramatic tension, but with calm observation, gentle wonder, and the quiet acknowledgement that some mysteries begin in the softest of whispers. The night of December 26, 1980, began like any other winter evening in Suffolk, quiet and still, with a gentle frost painting the ground in muted silver. Soldiers from the nearby RAF Woodbridge patrolled their assigned routes, their boots making a soft crunch against leaves and frost-laden grass. The forest was familiar territory, a place navigated countless times under the same starlit sky, yet on this night, it would feel subtly altered, as though the landscape itself were holding its breath in anticipation. The cold air was sharp, but not biting, carrying the faint sense of pine, wet earth, and the distant smoke of village hearths. There was nothing overtly alarming at first, just the quiet rhythm of a routine patrol, the occasional rustle of small animals, and the soft whisper of wind weaving through the branches. It was during this calm that the first unusual lights appeared. Descriptions from eyewitnesses speak of points of illumination, descending through the trees, hovering and moving in ways that defied ordinary explanation. Unlike conventional aircraft, these lights seemed to glide rather than fly, their trajectories smooth and deliberate, almost intelligent in appearance. Some were red, others green, and a few emitted a silvery glow that shimmered faintly against the frosted forest canopy. Observers trained to notice subtle irregularities in the night sky immediately recognized that these were not ordinary phenomena. Their reactions were a mixture of curiosity, caution, and a growing sense that the night held something extraordinary. Among those who first encountered the lights were John Burroughs and Jim Peniston, young security personnel conducting their routine night patrols. Their accounts emphasize both the visual strangeness and the eerie silence surrounding the event. The forest seemed to respond to the lights in subtle ways. Leaves trembled without wind, distant branches shifted, and the usual chorus of nocturnal creatures fell into hushed stillness. Listeners can imagine the scene in rich sensory detail, the way the frost glinted under the pulsing lights, the smell of pine and damp earth intensified in the cold, and the quiet that made every soft movement feel magnified. The tension was quiet yet undeniable, like the moment just before dawn when the world is aware it is about to change, but not yet certain how. Halted and captivated, Burroughs and Peniston observed the lights moving through the trees. One of the most notable features, according to eyewitnesses, was the apparent ability of the lights to shift direction abruptly and hover without mechanical sound. These details, so carefully recorded in later interviews, lend credibility to their accounts, suggesting genuine observation rather than simple imagination or misidentification. The experience was not one of terror, but of intense fascination, the kind that grips attention fully while the world around seems to dissolve into muted shades of gray and silver. As the lights moved, they seemed to cast soft reflections on tree trunks and frozen leaves, adding depth to the forest tableau while maintaining the surreal calm that marks this encounter. Soon the soldiers approached the source of the lights, guided by instinct, training, and a mix of apprehension and curiosity. As they neared, the phenomenon took on additional puzzling characteristics. Witnesses reported a triangular-shaped craft, silent yet luminous, with panels or ridges that reflected the forest's minimal light. Jim Peniston later described approaching so close that he could feel an almost magnetic energy in the air, a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate through the soles of his boots. The craft's edges were defined yet seemed to shimmer, as though refracting the forest itself. These observations, recorded both in personal notes and interviews years later, paint a picture of an object far beyond conventional understanding. Even while narrating in a calm, sleep-friendly voice, the scene conveys quiet astonishment and a tangible sense of otherworldly presence. Physical evidence began to complement the visual accounts. Trampled foliage, impressions in the soft earth, and oddly bent branches provided subtle proof that the lights, or the craft, were not mere tricks of perception. These details are often overlooked in casual retellings, but are crucial in lending credibility to the encounter. Listeners can be encouraged to imagine the forest floor under moonlight, noticing the small indentations, the disruption of the natural order, the faint glitter of frost disturbed by unknown steps. The calm, gentle narration contrasts with the underlying strangeness, allowing the mind to linger in a state of relaxed wonder, rather than tension-filled fear. Eyewitnesses also described feelings that extended beyond sight alone. A pervasive sense of presence, almost sentient in nature, seemed to accompany the lights. Some described an intuitive impression that the craft, or whatever guided the lights, was aware of them, observing silently, almost shyly, like a creature from a dream. There was no aggression, no panic, only a heightened awareness, a sense of being carefully noted without threat. In this way, the first night of lights becomes less about fear and more about immersive observation, a gentle invitation to question what is real while maintaining a sense of calm. The audience, lying back and listening, can share in this measured curiosity, feeling the subtle balance of intrigue and reassurance that defines bedtime mystery storytelling. By the early hours of the morning, the lights began to fade, retreating into the darkness as suddenly as they had appeared. The soldiers returned to their posts, carrying with them both awe and uncertainty, aware that something remarkable had occurred but uncertain of its meaning. Their detailed recollections, later recorded in reports and interviews, would become the foundation for decades of fascination. For the listener, this first encounter establishes the central theme, a delicate tension between the ordinary and extraordinary, grounded in reality, but touched by the inexplicable. As the forest settles once more into quiet, the night air soft and still, the scene closes gently, preparing the mind for reflection, deeper investigation, and the continuation of the mystery in the nights to come. The following evening, December 27, 1980, arrived with a subtle hush over Suffolk, the kind that signals both peace and the quiet expectation of something unusual. The frost still lingered in patches along the forest floor, and the silhouettes of bare branches stretched like dark fingers against the pale winter sky. A soft wind whispered through the trees, carrying the faint scent of pine and cold earth. The air felt heavier somehow, laden not with danger, but with anticipation. Those stationed at RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bentwaters could sense that the previous night's events had left a lingering presence, a quiet tension that hinted the forest had more to reveal. It was on this night that Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, Deputy Base Commander of RAF Bentwaters, became directly involved. Known for his meticulous approach to observation and his calm leadership, Halt approached the unfolding mystery with both discipline and curiosity. The evening began with routine checks. But soon the unusual lights returned, shimmering in the darkness beyond the forest edge. They moved in ways that defied conventional understanding, glowing with intensity and shifting positions, as if aware of the human observers below. The soldiers, now guided by Halt's authority, felt a mixture of caution, wonder, and anticipation, understanding that they were witnessing something that could not be easily dismissed. Halt's involvement brought a new dimension of credibility to the incident. He famously recorded his observations on an audio tape as events unfolded, his calm yet measured voice capturing every detail with precision. Listeners can imagine the scene: the faint rustle of boots on frosted leaves, the soft murmur of voices, and the occasional pause as observers adjusted to the surreal spectacle before them. Halt's narration on tape described moving lights that seemed to interact with the forest, beams of luminescence scanning the trees, and shapes that defied conventional description. The audio, later analyzed by researchers, has become one of the most compelling pieces of evidence, lending both authenticity and a palpable sense of immediacy to the story. As the team moved deeper into the forest, they encountered phenomena that both fascinated and unsettled them. Lights hovered at strange angles, sometimes low to the ground, sometimes high above the tree line, shifting color and intensity in patterns that suggested intentionality. The forest itself seemed to respond subtly. Branches quivered without wind, frost glimmered in unnatural ways, and distant shadows moved with a life of their own. The combination of visual strangeness and quiet soundlessness created a surreal, almost dreamlike atmosphere, where ordinary perceptions were challenged, and the forest became both familiar and alien. Listeners can picture the scene in rich sensory detail: the feel of cold air against the skin, the faint scent of damp earth, and the hypnotic glow of moving lights casting soft reflections across frost and bark. Physical traces again accompanied the visual phenomena: trodden paths, impressions in soft earth, and faint scorch-like markings suggested something tangible had traversed the forest. These subtle indicators, while not dramatic, added a layer of realism to the experience, grounding the narrative in credible observation. Eyewitnesses reported feeling an unusual energy in the air, a vibration or presence that could be felt more than seen. This heightened awareness, paired with the silent movement of the lights, created an atmosphere of calm alertness, perfectly suited to a slow, immersive storytelling style. The audience is encouraged to linger in these details, imagining themselves walking softly through a winter forest, eyes wide, senses tuned, heart calm yet curious. One of the most remarkable aspects of the second night was the apparent interaction between the lights and the observers. At times the lights seemed to follow the movement of the soldiers, maintaining a silent connection across the darkened forest floor. The audio recording captures Halt's calm description of these patterns, his voice never rising in alarm, but filled with subtle awe. Researchers have noted that the precision and consistency of his account, combined with corroborating witness reports, make this incident particularly compelling. The narrative unfolds slowly, allowing listeners to feel the same mix of wonder and relaxation, bridging intrigue with the gentle rhythm of bedtime storytelling. Throughout the evening, subtle auditory phenomena accompanied the visual ones. Occasional hums, soft thuds, and the faint rustle of unseen objects in the undergrowth created a sense of heightened perception. Yet, there was no overt threat, no sudden attacks, no aggressive behavior, only the quiet, deliberate presence of something unfamiliar. The forest became a canvas of observation, where ordinary reality blurred at the edges with something extraordinary, inviting careful, mindful attention. Listeners are encouraged to imagine the sensations: the soft crunch of frost underfoot, the gentle wind carrying distant, unidentifiable sounds, and the subtle interplay of colored lights dancing across the trees. All of this occurs without alarm, sustaining a calm, hypnotic rhythm that allows for both intrigue and relaxation. As the hours passed, the lights gradually receded, leaving behind a forest still and silent once more. The soldiers, led by Halt, returned to their posts with a mixture of reflection, wonder and quiet fatigue. Observers later described an almost reverent sense of having been part of something rare, a phenomenon both tangible and mysterious. The calm, measured pacing of the events, combined with their inexplicable nature, established the forest as a place where reality and wonder could coexist. The second night confirmed what the first had suggested. Rendlesham Forest was a locus of unusual activity, a space where lights and movement could not be easily categorized, yet where the human experience remained grounded in careful observation and reflective curiosity. For listeners, this second night serves as both a continuation and an expansion of the mystery. The story encourages them to follow the calm rhythm of the forest, the soft glow of strange lights, and the measured observations of credible witnesses. There is no rush, no dramatic leaps, only a patient unfolding of phenomena that challenge understanding while maintaining serenity. By the end of this section, the audience is fully immersed in the narrative, attuned to the sensory richness of the forest, and ready to explore the implications of official reports and broader investigation in the next chapter of the story. As the dawn of December 28, 1980, spread slowly over Suffolk, the Rendlesham Forest once again returned to its quiet, undisturbed state. Frost glimmered faintly on the forest floor, and the distant hum of village life began to resume its soft rhythm. To casual observers, it seemed as though nothing extraordinary had occurred at all. Yet, for those who had witnessed the unusual lights over 2 nights, the memory remained vivid, almost tangible. They were left with a mixture of awe, curiosity, and the subtle unease of knowing they had experienced something the world might not fully believe. It was in this quiet aftermath that the official machinery of explanation began to take shape. Lieutenant Colonel Halt, along with other personnel, filed detailed reports outlining their observations. The accounts included precise descriptions of moving lights, unusual patterns, and physical traces found in the forest. Halt's memorandum to the Ministry of Defense, MOD, dated January 13, 1981, became one of the most important documents in establishing the credibility of the event. Written in measured professional language, the report described lights that moved in the forest, beams that appeared to scan the area, and objects that could not be easily identified. The memo also included observations of magnetic anomalies and impressions in the ground, further suggesting that the encounters were not merely figments of imagination. Despite the thoroughness of Halt's report, the official response from the MOD was restrained. Internal documents later revealed that the case was ultimately deemed to have no defense significance. This phrasing, while technically accurate from a military perspective, minimized the incident and failed to capture the experiences of those involved. To the soldiers, the official indifference felt both frustrating and puzzling. They had seen lights that seemed deliberate, objects that defied explanation, and a forest that responded in ways that could not easily be rationalized. The tension between lived experience and bureaucratic dismissal created a quiet, lingering unease, a subtle mystery that even paperwork could not fully resolve. Eyewitnesses expressed that the language used in official documents often seemed to smooth over the unusual elements of their experiences. Words like lights and unidentified appeared in reports, but the reports lacked the rich detail and the palpable sense of presence that soldiers themselves had recorded. For example, while the MOD acknowledged that personnel had reported unusual lights, it did not address the physical traces found on the ground, the faint hums perceived by observers, or the shifting patterns of illumination that seemed intentional. The gap between official summary and first-hand observation became a focal point for later research, discussion, and public intrigue. Listeners can imagine the subtle frustration of trained observers, their careful notes contrasting with the muted official record, all while the forest outside remained calm, silent, and seemingly unconcerned with human interpretation. The restrained official approach was not unusual in the context of Cold War Britain. Military and governmental institutions often prioritized secrecy and the careful management of information, especially when incidents occurred near strategic bases or involved foreign military personnel. Nuclear weapons stationed nearby, combined with heightened global tension, created an environment in which ambiguous phenomena were carefully logged but rarely sensationalized. Researchers analyzing the Rendlesham reports note that this context helps explain why the MOD treated the case with such procedural caution. The language of denial was not necessarily dismissal of reality, but a reflection of bureaucratic prudence in a sensitive geopolitical moment. Media coverage at the time added another layer to the story. Local newspapers reported on the sightings cautiously, often citing unnamed sources or relying on military statements. Sensationalized accounts were rare, but the fragments that did reach the public eye sparked curiosity and debate. To the soldiers, it must have seemed strange. Their observations were being partially shared, partially filtered, and sometimes questioned. Yet this gap between personal experience and public record created fertile ground for fascination, allowing the story to grow in both mystery and cultural significance. Listeners can picture the quiet contrast, the forest still in frost-dusted silence, while human institutions debated, summarized, and sometimes ignored what had unfolded beneath the trees. Researchers who later revisited the official documents highlighted inconsistencies and omissions, not to discredit the reports, but to underscore the challenges of interpreting unusual events within a rigid bureaucratic system. While the MOD dismissed the incident as having no defense significance, witnesses consistently described experiences that went beyond ordinary phenomena. Magnetic anomalies, physical traces, and a sense of presence were mentioned repeatedly in personal accounts, but rarely acknowledged in official memos. This contrast provides a subtle tension in the narrative, one that encourages reflection rather than alarm. It allows listeners to feel the credibility of both sides, trained observers reporting remarkable events, and a government cautiously documenting without amplification. Psychologically, the incident offers insight into human response to the unexplained. Soldiers accustomed to vigilance and routine were confronted with events that challenged their expectations. Their detailed observations, often recorded in quiet note-taking, reflected both acute perception and careful restraint. Official denials or subdued reports could not erase the memory of what they had seen, nor the faint emotional resonance that remained. Listeners reclining in comfort are invited to sense this gentle tension, the juxtaposition of extraordinary experience against procedural calm, a subtle dissonance that enriches the story while maintaining serenity. By the close of this section, the audience understands that the Rendlesham Forest lights were witnessed, documented, and later downplayed, yet the lived experience remained vivid, tangible, and mysterious. The quiet frost of Suffolk's winter landscape, the untouched branches, and the whispering wind all stand as witnesses to events that paperwork could not fully capture. This prepares listeners for the next stage of the narrative, exploring the range of explanations, from rational to extraordinary, while maintaining the calm, reflective pacing that allows mystery to unfold gently, like the soft movement of light through the trees. As the frost of Suffolk morning gives way to the soft hush of another winter night, the mind naturally begins to ask questions. What had the soldiers truly witnessed? Were the lights in Rendlesham Forest a misinterpreted reflection, a natural phenomenon, or something beyond human understanding? This gentle reflection invites the listener to drift calmly through competing explanations, exploring each possibility without judgment, allowing curiosity to mingle with relaxation. Theories range from the mundane to the extraordinary, each offering a lens through which the events might be understood, yet none fully diminish the mystery. The first category of explanations is rooted in ordinary phenomena. Some researchers have proposed that the sightings were caused by the Orford Ness Lighthouse, located several miles away on the Suffolk coast. Its bright beam, sometimes refracted by fog or atmospheric conditions, could create the illusion of moving lights in the forest. Meteor showers and bright stars have also been suggested, as the winter skies of Suffolk often host vivid celestial displays. Even misidentified aircraft or helicopters could account for unusual movement, especially when viewed through the trees at night. These explanations provide a calm, rational framework, helping listeners feel grounded as they consider how perception can interact with environmental factors. Yet, even with mundane explanations, the Rendlesham case resists full simplification. Witnesses, trained in observation and familiar with standard military procedures, consistently described patterns and behaviors that ordinary lights could not easily reproduce. The lights seemed to move with intent, sometimes hovering silently, shifting colors, or interacting with the forest in subtle ways. Trees and foliage were disturbed in manners that suggested physical presence rather than optical illusion. Observers also noted magnetic interference affecting compasses and instruments, anomalies that are difficult to explain through conventional means. For the listener, this delicate tension between rational possibility and unusual observation creates a gentle intrigue, perfect for reflective bedtime listening. Stepping beyond ordinary explanations, some researchers consider more extraordinary hypotheses. Could these lights represent an unidentified aerial phenomenon, or perhaps a craft of unknown origin? Eyewitness accounts of triangular shapes, hovering objects, and lights that seemed aware of observers lend weight to this possibility. Such descriptions are supported by multiple independent witnesses, adding credibility and inviting calm wonder rather than alarm. As the audience imagines the scene, the narrative encourages a sense of curiosity, the soft thrill of pondering what lies just beyond the edge of human comprehension, while maintaining a soothing rhythm. Interdimensional theories have also been suggested by certain researchers and enthusiasts. These ideas propose that the lights may have originated from realms or dimensions that intersect with our own, manifesting in ways that defy conventional physics. While speculative, this framework resonates with the mysterious tone of the story, allowing the audience to contemplate phenomena without needing immediate explanation. It encourages a meditative state, as listeners picture the forest subtly interacting with forces beyond ordinary perception. The quiet frost underfoot reflecting the faint, otherworldly glow. Psychological factors are equally significant in understanding the Rendlesham lights. Observers were under stress, patrolling in darkness, with limited visibility and heightened alertness. Such conditions can enhance perception, leading to experiences that feel vivid and real, even when influenced by expectation or subtle environmental cues. Yet, the consistency across multiple independent witnesses, the physical traces left behind, and the professional demeanor of military personnel provide a counterbalance, suggesting that psychological explanations alone may not suffice. The story thus maintains a calm tension between reason and wonder, a balance that gently engages the mind without creating anxiety. Historical context also provides insight into the plausibility of both mundane and extraordinary explanations. During the Cold War, advanced experimental aircraft were occasionally tested in secrecy, sometimes near Allied bases. Could the lights have been part of a classified operation, observed inadvertently by soldiers unprepared for such technology? While some researchers argue this is unlikely, the mere possibility adds depth to the narrative, encouraging reflection on how ordinary events intersect with extraordinary circumstances. Listeners can imagine the hush of secrecy, the quiet forest watching over the unfolding mystery, enhancing the immersive experience. Natural phenomena continue to offer intriguing possibilities. Ball lightning, atmospheric plasma, or other rare meteorological effects can produce lights that appear intelligent, shift in color, and interact with the environment. Some theories suggest reflections from snow or frost, combined with shadows cast by trees, might create visual illusions of movement. Each possibility adds layers to the narrative, allowing listeners to explore the mystery in a calm, contemplative way. The goal is not to convince, but to gently open the mind to multiple perspectives, maintaining serenity while nurturing intrigue. The extraordinary explanations, UFO visitation, interdimensional activity, or even phenomena not yet understood by modern science, remain compelling because they align with the sensory experiences of witnesses. Jim Penniston described approaching a craft and observing surface details that seemed anomalous, while John Burroughs noted the calm, deliberate movement of lights that did not correspond to aircraft or natural sources. These first-hand accounts, paired with physical traces and magnetic anomalies, suggest that the incident may lie at the intersection of the known and the unknown. The narrative encourages listeners to appreciate the subtle wonder of this intersection, without forcing belief, allowing curiosity to coexist with calm reflection. Finally, the story invites the listener to sit with uncertainty, the gentle rhythm of narration acting as a guide through ambiguity. Whether the lights were mundane, extraordinary, or somewhere in between, their presence left a lasting impression on those who observed them. The forest, with its soft frost, whispering trees, and distant stars, witnessed events that remain enigmatic, serving as a quiet stage for reflection. As the audience drifts further into the narrative, they are encouraged to balance reason with wonder, to explore the mystery with both attentive observation and serene curiosity. In this section, the balance of rational explanations and extraordinary possibilities creates a gentle tension, perfect for immersive storytelling. The audience experiences the mystery calmly, exploring possibilities without fear, setting the stage for the next chapter, how the incident rippled into culture, media, and folklore, deepening the allure of Rendlesham Forest. The Rendlesham Forest Incident did not remain confined to the quiet, frost-covered woods of Suffolk. Over time, it rippled outward, touching media, literature, and public imagination, creating a subtle yet enduring cultural footprint. The initial reports, while understated in official documentation, found their way into local newspapers and regional broadcasts. Stories described unexplained lights and mysterious activity in the forest, often with careful phrasing that reflected both intrigue and caution. To villagers and locals, these stories seemed almost like folklore emerging in real time, a whispered acknowledgement that the ordinary world could sometimes brush against the extraordinary. The restrained coverage only heightened the allure. Unlike sensationalized tabloid headlines, the Rendlesham accounts were measured, emphasizing credibility and witness reliability. This balance between factual grounding and the hint of mystery created fertile ground for curiosity, allowing the story to grow organically over decades. Readers, listeners, and later viewers could imagine the events for themselves, filling in gaps with their own interpretations, while still respecting the sober tone of official reports. This calm, reflective ambiguity allowed Rendlesham Forest to enter collective consciousness as a place where reality and wonder could coexist, perfect for those drawn to mysteries that invite contemplation rather than alarm. As the story spread, books and documentaries began to explore the incident in depth. Authors meticulously examined witness testimonies, government documents, and the physical traces left in the forest. These works often highlighted the professionalism of the military personnel involved, juxtaposing disciplined observation with inexplicable phenomena. Such narratives encouraged a slow, thoughtful engagement with the mystery, aligning perfectly with the tone of immersive, reflective storytelling. The forest, described with soft, detailed imagery, became a character in its own right, silent, enduring, and slightly enigmatic, watching over decades of intrigue. Film and television also contributed to the Rendlesham legend, though often subtly. Documentaries emphasized interviews with eyewitnesses, revisiting the forest under quiet, controlled conditions to recreate the sensory experience of the event. Cinematic reconstructions focused on atmosphere rather than drama, emphasizing the gentle, unsettling beauty of the forest at night, the quiet movement of lights, and the soft hum of unexplained energy. By avoiding sensationalized shock and embracing slow, atmospheric pacing, these portrayals invited audiences to imagine themselves within the scene, to feel the forest's calm while pondering the mystery. The blending of realism and cinematic tension created a new way for the story to live in public imagination. The incident's influence extended beyond media into broader cultural folklore. Rendlesham Forest became a symbol of Britain's capacity for mystery, a quiet parallel to the United States Roswell event. Local traditions began to incorporate subtle nods to unexplained lights and forest phenomena, and the story became a touchstone for those fascinated by the intersection of history, science, and the unknown. Listeners can imagine villagers sharing soft-spoken accounts over tea or in the warm glow of a fireplace, recounting tales that combine factual observation with wonder, bridging generations of curiosity. The forest, with its frost-dusted branches and whispering pines, held a subtle authority, as if acknowledging the stories told under its canopy. Academic interest also emerged, particularly from historians and psychologists studying human response to unusual events. Scholars examined how authority figures like Lieutenant Colonel Halt navigated the tension between personal experience and institutional responsibility, or how groups of witnesses corroborated unusual phenomena while maintaining professional composure. Sociologists explored how communities responded to ambiguous reports, noting the balance between skepticism and fascination. Each perspective enriched the narrative, offering listeners both insight and gentle reflection on the human mind's interaction with mystery. The story of Rendlesham Forest thus evolved as a layered cultural artifact, simultaneously historical, psychological, and folkloric. The media and cultural attention also shaped public expectations of UFO phenomena more broadly. Rendlesham became a case study in how credibility and restraint could amplify intrigue. Witnesses were respected, their accounts taken seriously by researchers, while official documents offered a sober backdrop. Unlike sensationalized tales that rely on shock or fear, Rendlesham's story emphasized careful observation, reflective curiosity, and a measured balance between skepticism and wonder. For the audience listening at bedtime, this approach nurtures calm engagement, encouraging the mind to explore subtle mysteries without anxiety. By the 1990s and early 2000s, documentaries, books, and online discussions revitalized the story for a new generation. Researchers revisited original reports, interviewed surviving witnesses, and explored the forest under controlled conditions. New perspectives, combined with historical documentation, allowed audiences to consider both rational explanations and extraordinary possibilities. The forest remained a silent witness, its paths, trees, and frost-kissed ground unchanged, yet enriched by the layers of human narrative, memory, and imagination that surrounded it. The calm repetition of these cultural ripples mirrors the soft rhythmic pacing ideal for bedtime storytelling. Mystery unfolds gently, allowing listeners to ponder, reflect, and drift into imagination. Finally, the cultural ripple effect of Rendlesham illustrates a universal truth: human fascination with the unexplained endures when treated with respect and subtlety. The incident's slow integration into media, folklore, and scholarly work demonstrates that mystery need not scream to captivate. Quietly, methodically, the story entered the public imagination, offering both intrigue and reflection. As the listener imagines the forest beneath a winter sky, illuminated occasionally by an unexplained glow, they participate in this cultural continuum, feeling the gentle hum of history, observation, and imagination, all intertwined. The narrative of Rendlesham Forest becomes not only a story of lights and witnesses, but a meditation on curiosity, perception, and the enduring allure of what remains unexplained. Decades after the initial events in Rendlesham Forest, curiosity about the lights has never faded. Modern investigations have revisited the site, analyzed old documents, and interviewed surviving witnesses, all in an effort to understand what happened during those crisp December nights of 1980. The forest, unchanged in its frost-dusted serenity, remains a silent observer of both human inquiry and imagination. Listeners can imagine walking slowly through the trees, hearing the soft crunch of leaves underfoot, the gentle whisper of wind, and the subtle glimmer of stars above, as contemporary researchers retrace the footsteps of soldiers from decades past. One of the most significant modern investigations occurred when researchers obtained original Ministry of Defense files, highlighting both the events themselves and the cautious, measured responses from military authorities. These documents, once hidden in official archives, provide insight into the balance between observation and bureaucratic caution. Analysts noted that while the MOD officially downplayed the event, it still recognized the presence of unexplained lights and monitored the situation carefully. This duality, the acknowledgement of unusual phenomena alongside procedural restraint, offers a compelling backdrop for understanding how serious institutions handle unexplained events. For the listener, this encourages calm reflection. Mystery exists even amid rigorous documentation. Field investigations in recent years have attempted to recreate the sensory conditions of the original sightings. Teams have walked the forest at night, documenting light conditions, landscape features, and sightlines, attempting to replicate what the soldiers might have seen. They have noted that while certain light effects, such as distant lighthouses or reflective surfaces, could produce unusual illumination, these alone do not account for all reported phenomena. Observers consistently highlight patterns, color changes, and hovering behavior that resist simple explanation. The forest itself, with its muted shadows and textured undergrowth, remains a crucial character, influencing perception while maintaining its quiet, mysterious presence. Eyewitnesses, many of whom have revisited the forest in later years, emphasize the consistency of their original experiences. John Burroughs and Jim Peniston, among others, provide detailed recollections of the light's movement, their hovering and apparent intelligence, and the subtle physical effects on the environment. Modern interviews have allowed researchers to compare accounts across decades, noting remarkable alignment in observation and description. This longitudinal consistency, rare in anecdotal cases, strengthens the credibility of the witnesses while maintaining the calm, reflective tone ideal for bedtime storytelling. Listeners can imagine the soldiers walking softly through the frosted paths, their senses heightened, experiencing the same quiet awe felt decades later. Skepticism, however, has also played a key role in modern analysis. Researchers and critics have proposed several rational explanations, from misidentified natural or human-made light sources to psychological phenomena influenced by expectation, fatigue, or environmental conditions. One commonly discussed hypothesis is the Orford Ness Lighthouse, whose rotating beam could appear to move and shift when viewed through the forest. Others have suggested meteorological phenomena or optical illusions caused by frost, mist, or ambient light reflection. These perspectives provide balance, reminding the audience that even compelling events can sometimes have mundane roots. The gentle presentation of skepticism allows the listener to contemplate alternative explanations without fear or anxiety, sustaining the calm rhythm of the narrative. Magnetic anomalies and physical traces, however, remain difficult to explain purely through rational means. Reports of compass deviations, impressions in the earth, and unusual marks on tree bark provide tangible elements that complement eyewitness testimony. Modern researchers using contemporary equipment have sometimes detected minor residual anomalies, though results vary and are inconclusive. These subtleties enhance the story without creating alarm. They serve as threads of intrigue woven into the soft fabric of the forest and its mysteries. For the listener, this creates a sense of tactile engagement, imagining frost-dusted impressions and faint disturbances that hint at something beyond ordinary perception. Technology has also facilitated deeper exploration. High-resolution mapping, photogrammetry, and thermal imaging have allowed investigators to study the forest environment in ways that were unavailable in 1980. These tools provide additional context for understanding sightlines, potential light distortions, and environmental conditions, adding nuance to both skeptical and supportive interpretations. At the same time, technology has not solved the mystery entirely, preserving the forest's quiet authority. Listeners are invited to picture the interplay of cutting-edge tools with the timeless calm of trees, shadows and soft moonlight, an elegant juxtaposition of human inquiry and natural serenity. Academic perspectives provide another layer of depth. Psychologists have studied the experiences to understand human perception under conditions of limited light, heightened attention, and mild stress. Sociologists and historians examine how official responses, public interest, and cultural narratives interact to sustain collective memory of the event. These disciplines offer a reflective lens, suggesting that the Rendlesham phenomenon exists not only in the physical world, but also in the landscape of human perception, memory, and interpretation. Listeners can drift gently through this reflective layer, contemplating the ways in which minds, history, and culture intertwine with mysterious events. Ultimately, modern investigations have created a nuanced picture. The events in Rendlesham Forest remain partly unexplained, partly rationalized, and fully compelling. No single theory resolves every observation, leaving room for thoughtful reflection and quiet curiosity. The forest, unchanged over decades, stands as a living witness to human exploration, inquiry, and imagination. By emphasizing measured analysis, credible testimony, and gentle reflection, this narrative maintains serenity, while engaging the mind, inviting listeners to explore the boundaries of perception without urgency or alarm. In this way, the modern perspective bridges history and present-day understanding, skepticism and wonder, observation and imagination. It allows the listener to drift calmly through layers of fact, inference, and interpretation, feeling the rhythm of careful exploration, the hush of the forest, and the enduring intrigue of lights that hover just beyond full comprehension. As the story gently moves toward its conclusion, the audience is fully immersed in both the mystery and the reflective calm that defines the Rendlesham Forest experience, ready to move into the final meditation on wonder, sleep, and mystery. As the night of the Shag Harbor incident recedes into history, its echoes linger in both the village and the collective imagination. The calm waters of the bay, the gentle glow of an unknown object descending silently into the Atlantic, and the quiet observation of villagers and authorities alike all combine to create a story that is both timeless and deeply human. Unlike many mysteries, Shag Harbor is not marked by chaos or fear. It is a narrative of careful attention, curiosity, and reflection, allowing those who hear it, even decades later, to feel both intrigue and tranquility. Looking back, one can appreciate the extraordinary alignment of elements that made this event so compelling. Multiple witnesses observed the phenomenon from different vantage points, providing consistent accounts that reinforced each other. RCMP officers documented the incident with measured professionalism, and naval divers approached the waters with methodical diligence, exploring the depths with calm attention. The combination of trained observers, ordinary villagers, and natural phenomena created a rich, multi-layered record that endures in both official reports and personal recollections. It is this combination of meticulous observation and inherent mystery that has given Shag Harbor its lasting credibility and fascination. The enduring mystery lies not only in what was seen, but in what remains unseen. No definitive object was recovered, no explanation fully satisfies the range of eyewitness accounts, and yet the evidence of observation is undeniable. The lingering glow beneath the water, the foamy residue on the surface, and the reports of movement and light all point to an event that was tangible, yet defied conventional explanation. Psychologists and researchers have often highlighted the significance of such phenomena, noting that encounters with the unexplained, when experienced calmly and collectively, can profoundly shape perception, memory, and cultural storytelling. In Shag Harbor, this has manifested in a legacy of reflection and fascination, rather than fear or panic. Over the decades, the story of Shag Harbor has evolved from a local event into a cultural and scientific touchstone. UFO enthusiasts, historians, and researchers continue to study the incident, examining archival documents, conducting interviews, and visiting the site. Yet, despite advances in technology and investigation, the fundamental mystery remains intact. The Atlantic waters hold their secret, the glowing object beneath the waves remains unverified, and the subtle foam and ripples continue to inspire speculation. This unresolved nature is central to the story's enduring power. It invites the mind to explore possibilities gently, maintaining curiosity while preserving calm, a rare balance in tales of the unexplained. The psychological impact of the Shag Harbor incident also deserves attention. Witnesses often describe a mixture of wonder and quiet contemplation, a state of calm alertness that allows the extraordinary to be observed without panic. This balance is central to the story's appeal, particularly for those listening as a sleep story. The narrative demonstrates that encounters with the unknown do not need to be frightening. They can be experienced as moments of gentle curiosity, allowing the imagination to explore new horizons while the mind remains at ease. For many, this subtle emotional resonance is what transforms the story from a historical event into a meditative journey, a chance to drift into mystery while remaining grounded in reality. The cultural legacy of Shag Harbor also extends into the broader human fascination with the unknown. It serves as a reminder that even in small, quiet communities, extraordinary events can unfold that challenge assumptions, stretch the imagination, and invite contemplation. By preserving both the facts and the human responses to those facts, the story of Shag Harbor encourages a form of mindful curiosity, an openness to wonder, an attentiveness to observation, and a comfort with uncertainty. In a world often dominated by noise and certainty, this calm exploration of the unknown provides a rare space for reflection, introspection, and quiet awe. For those who revisit the bay today, or for listeners imagining the scene in their mind, Shag Harbor offers a gentle passage into the unknown. One can picture the cool Atlantic waters, the faint luminescence lingering just beneath the surface, and the quiet observation of villagers and authorities alike. The waves ripple softly, reflecting the subtle mystery of a night long past, yet somehow present in memory and imagination. Every detail, the foam drifting across the water, the hush of the shore, the soft glimmer of distant lights, serves as a reminder that mystery can coexist with calm curiosity, with serenity, and wonder with rest. In closing, the enduring mystery of Shag Harbor is not defined by answers, but by the interplay of observation, reflection, and imagination. It is a story that bridges generations, connects ordinary lives with extraordinary phenomena, and provides a template for experiencing the unknown without fear. It reminds us that some mysteries are meant to be observed, pondered, and appreciated, rather than solved. As listeners, one can drift gently through as the last traces of night settle softly over Suffolk, and the winter frost sparkles faintly in the moonlight. It is natural to pause and reflect on what Rendlesham Forest has revealed to us. Over the course of those two extraordinary nights in December 1980, lights danced through the trees, trained observers recorded their movements with meticulous care, and the forest itself seemed to hold its breath, witnessing the unfolding mystery in silence. Even now, decades later, the forest remains unchanged, a quiet frost-dusted witness to events that defy easy explanation. For the listener, this is a moment to lean back, inhale softly, and allow the mind to drift gently through both wonder and calm, acknowledging that some mysteries exist, not to be solved, but to be experienced. The Rendlesham Forest Incident teaches us about observation, perception, and the delicate balance between ordinary life and extraordinary experience. Trained soldiers, bound by duty and rigorous training, found themselves encountering phenomena that challenged their expectations. Their calm, careful documentation, alongside subtle physical traces in the forest, offers both credibility and a human touch. We can imagine them walking softly through the frost-covered undergrowth, senses alert but measured, experiencing awe without panic, curiosity without recklessness. This measured, reflective response mirrors the mindset encouraged for the listener, attentive, serene, and open to the unknown, allowing the mind to wander without tension. Historical context deepens our appreciation. Suffolk in 1980, quiet yet strategically important during the Cold War, was a place where vigilance and calm coexisted. Military bases nearby, nuclear weapons in storage, and trained personnel on duty created a unique atmosphere in which even subtle anomalies demanded attention. Yet the forest maintained its tranquility, blending natural beauty with a subtle capacity for mystery. For those listening, imagining this landscape, a mix of ordered human activity and untamed natural calm, invites relaxation while also gently heightening curiosity. The juxtaposition is meditative. The ordinary world of patrolling soldiers and official reports meets the extraordinary glow of unexplained lights, creating a narrative that is both grounding and dreamlike. The interplay between official documentation and personal experience offers another layer of reflection. While government reports may downplay or rationalize what was observed, eyewitness accounts preserve the lived experience, the shimmer of colored lights, impressions in the frost, subtle magnetic disturbances, and the quiet sense of presence in the forest. This duality encourages a gentle contemplation. Reality is not always singular, and understanding often emerges from the tension between recorded fact and personal observation. Listeners can meditate on this idea as they drift into relaxation, acknowledging that some truths are experienced as much as they are documented, and that the mystery itself holds value beyond explanation. Modern investigations further enrich this reflection. Researchers retracing footsteps decades later, analyzing documents, and revisiting the forest environment demonstrate humanity's persistent curiosity. Technological tools, psychological insights, and interdisciplinary research allow us to explore the phenomenon in new ways, while still honoring the subtlety of the original experience. The forest, unchanged in its quiet majesty, acts as a living canvas upon which history, imagination, and inquiry converge. For listeners, the scene invites a calm, immersive meditation, footsteps soft on frost, a gentle breeze through trees, the faint glow of stars or imagined lights, all blending into a serene sense of connection with both the past and the unknown. The enduring fascination with Rendlesham also reflects a deeper human instinct, the desire to explore boundaries, to witness what lies just beyond ordinary perception. The lights of 1980, whether mundane, extraordinary, or somewhere in between, speak to the same curiosity that draws us to night skies, forests, and quiet corners where the familiar becomes unfamiliar. As the story gently closes, the audience is invited to settle into this sense of wonder without urgency, to appreciate the beauty of questioning, observing, and imagining. There is calm in acknowledging that some mysteries are meant to hover at the edge of perception, inviting reflection rather than immediate answers. Finally, as the narrative drifts toward its close, listeners can allow their minds to merge the forest, the lights, and the gentle cadence of observation into a peaceful contemplative state. Imagine the frost-dusted trees, reflecting a soft, silvery glow, the hush of wind through the branches, the distant hum of a forest, alive yet still, the sensation of walking slowly, gently, with curiosity, and calm in equal measure. This is a place where the extraordinary and ordinary coexist, where history, human perception, and natural beauty intertwine, and where one can release tension, breathe deeply, and drift into quiet reflection. Rendlesham Forest, in its quiet majesty, reminds us that mystery does not demand panic or fear. It invites calm observation, thoughtful reflection, and gentle curiosity. The lights, the sounds, the subtle impressions in the ground, and the detailed accounts of witnesses form a tapestry that lingers in the imagination long after the story ends. For the listener, this concluding reflection offers both serenity and wonder, providing a bridge into sleep, a space where curiosity and calm coexist, and a gentle invitation to let the mind wander through the soft glow of what remains unexplained. In this final meditation, Rendlesham becomes more than a historical event. It becomes a symbol of attentive presence, measured curiosity, and the quiet thrill of encountering the unknown. As the story fades into the hush of night, the forest continues to watch, the frost glimmers faintly, and the mind, soothed and intrigued, drifts into restful contemplation, carrying the mystery with it into dreams. The narrative, letting the calm rhythm of waves, the soft glow of the unknown, and the measured accounts of witnesses guide the mind into rest. And so, the night of October 4th, 1967, remains alive, not just in historical records, or in media accounts, or in the memories of those who witnessed it, but in the quiet reflection, it invites in all who hear the story. Shag Harbor teaches us that mystery can be serene, that observation can be mindful, and that the unknown can be a source of gentle wonder. As you drift toward sleep, imagine the calm waters, the silent descent of a glowing object, and the hushed curiosity of a small village, standing quietly at the edge of the Atlantic. Let this image carry you into rest, knowing that some mysteries, like Shag Harbor, are best experienced with calm attention and a sense of quiet awe.